Hello, my name is Jonathan Lofton, and this is my Flip the Classroom presentation. To begin, we're starting with Chapter 1, which is the Introduction to Classroom Management. The first concept I chose to talk about was recognizing the role classroom management plays in other facets of teaching. Classroom management is a broad term that encompasses the behaviors, activities, and strategies that educators use or guide their students' behaviors. This involves planning and interactive aspects as well. Furthermore, Concept 2 was planning versus interaction. Planning aspects include tasks of organizing the physical space of the classroom, establishing rules, creating incentives to encourage desirable behavior, establishing consequences to discourage disapproved behavior, and organizing instructional activities to promote student involvement and engagement. On the other hand, interactive aspects include real-time set of behaviors and strategies. This includes monitoring and interacting with students, providing feedback and support, stepping in when necessary to redirect student behavior, working with students to stimulate interest, involvement, and cooperation. Lastly, I wanted to finish off with what good classroom management looks like. The book stresses that good classroom management provides good structure. Structure is where students can participate and make progress in their development of knowledge, providing lesson content, activities, and assignments that appeal to age group and grade level. Classroom management becomes easier when students are engaged and have a good relationship with the educator. For my takeaways from this chapter, I found there are a plethora of skills necessary to becoming a teacher. Being a teacher is harder than it seems. Designing lessons that interest students, establishing connections with students, motivating students, and keeping a good attitude while doing it all can seem stressful. My biggest takeaway is that the canvas is yours to write. You determine the type of teacher you want to be by doing it your way. Moving forward, Chapter 2 is about building supportive and healthy classroom relationships. This concept relates to just the breakdown and the components of classroom relationships. Relationships define as the generalized personal meaning students and teachers attach to their interactions with each other. Some teachers who critique the students are seen as mean, while the teachers who want to see their students succeed are deemed as helpful. Moving on to the next concept, we have the two dimensions of interpersonal behaviors that are the basis for describing relationships. For the first one, we have influence. Influence refers to the degree to which interpersonal behaviors in a relationship exhibit direction, assertiveness, control, and leadership. High influence includes goal setting, exerting control, expressing opinions, etc. Lower influence behaviors are behaviors that reflect a submissiveness, like withholding opinions, avoiding confrontation, and giving in. Next, we have affect. Affect represents the extent of sociability or connection present in the interaction. And there are two ends of this dimension. We have the positive end, which are behaviors that have positive effect, expressing affection, reassuring, complimenting, showing empathy. The negative end is disagreeableness, criticism, disapproval, sarcasm, and discrediting. For the next concept, we have managing first impressions. Initial contacts set the tone. It's important to show your willingness to take the role of the educator seriously. The book gives tips on how to give good first impressions to the students. First, you want to welcome students with a smile and make eye contact. Introduce yourself and the aspects of your personal life. Use a get acquainted activity to engage the students. Be organized and ready for all activities, and praise the class as a whole and not single out students. You also want to teach daily routines and classroom expectations. Redirect off-task behavior and use effective body language and group signals. From this chapter, I was able to take away that being a teacher involves the good cop, bad cop role. You are not there to make friends with the students, but to enhance their knowledge on certain subjects. There is a time and place to open up and show empathy, but there is also a time to be serious and set the tone. Chapter 3: Organizing Your Classroom and Materials. Concept 1 starts with 5 keys to good room arrangement. Number 1 is use a room arrangement consistent with your instructional goals and activities. First, think about the activities that will happen throughout the year, and then arrange the classroom around that. 2, you want to keep high traffic areas free from congestion. Areas where people will consistently congregate should easily be accessible. 3, you want to be sure students can easily be seen by the teacher. Careful monitoring isn't only important for safety, but also to help avoid disruptions. 4, you want to keep frequently using teaching materials and student supplies and having them readily accessible. And 5, you want to be certain that students can easily see whole class presentations and displays. The next concept is wall space. Wall space provides areas to display student work, rules, decorations, schedules, and the clock. It's important at the beginning of the year to leave space on the walls for things in the future. It is also important to not spend so much time decorating the room, and over-decorating can make the room less open and more cluttered. For floor space, floor plan is determined by where you decide you are going to lecture. From this, you can arrange desks and tables. It is important to leave enough room around the desk so that movement is easier. Leave enough room so that it's easy to change. Chapter 4: Establishing Classroom Rules and Procedures. When we define the things of this chapter, we have goals, we have expectations, rules, and procedures. When identifying school rules and procedures, teachers are expected to enforce a set of rules, usually around 3 to 5. One common one is note behaviors that are forbidden. 2 is know the consequences for rule violations. And 3 is follow the procedures that must be handled during class time. When teaching the rules and procedures, it's important to describe and demonstrate the desired behavior. We also want to rehearse and practice this behavior. This way, it provides you with an opportunity to determine whether the students understand. And 3, most importantly, is feedback. Chapter 5: Managing Students' Work. As a teacher, you'll always have absent students, so it's important to have a procedure for that. So 1, you want to arrange to meet briefly with students who have been absent to discuss the makeup assignments. Establish a regular time. Establish a place for students to turn in makeup work. And determine the students who missed the group work and what they'll make up. And 5, discuss with the students and parents for a plan for completing the work. When managing student profiles, I chose this concept because I found that through my K-12 experience, it is an effective way of showing progress. And the most common one are portfolios, where you can see how your writing or just your class subject has changed for you. And in my creative writing class right now, we have a poetry portfolio where we get to see the progress of our poetry writing. Last of this concept for this chapter, but importantly not least, is providing feedback to students. All students should have the opportunity to be recognized. The book talks about always finding opportunities to do so. So it's important to be clear with the feedback and not just grade harshly with no reason. Students' work should be shared with their parents as well. Chapter 6 is all about getting off to a good start. And the best way to get off to a good start is by creating a positive climate in your classroom. The goal to having an interactive classroom starts with smiling. You want to speak courteously and calmly, share information, speak positively as often as possible, and establish a feeling of community. The next concept, we have perspectives on the beginning of the year. I found this concept pretty important because in the beginning of the year, students have worries and concerns that should be resolved. And to help students be successful by planning on complicated and interesting lessons, you want to keep the class focused. This means that the instruction and direction will be made to the entire class at the same time, and students will be doing the same assignments, but essentially moving at the same pace. And you always want to be available, visible, and in charge. To finish it off, preparing for a substitute. This is pretty important because you always want to be prepared, and that is by creating a handbook. In this handbook, you want to have the class role, seating chart, the copy of the rules, daily schedule, the list of medical alerts and medication times for various elements, the emergency lesson plans, and the names of teachers and students who can help.